If you have osteoporosis or low bone density, then there are a few yoga poses that you need to avoid in your practice. So today, we'll talk about those yoga pose don'ts, but we'll also talk about what you should be doing instead, because yoga can be hugely beneficial for osteoporosis. There are just a few things that we need to keep in mind while we're practicing. So let's jump right in. First of all, I don't really want to demonize any particular movement or make you fearful about movement. So just think of these as guidelines as you do your yoga to keep in mind to keep your bones safe. With that said, the first yoga pose you'll want to avoid if you have osteoporosis is the seated forward fold, or really any position where you're folding over trying to touch your toes. Okay, see how I'm sat here. And when I round, when I reach forward, I am rounding in my back, right? This rounded position, I'm trying to exaggerate so you can see, this rounded position in my spine is called flexion. And it's best to avoid flexion if you have osteoporosis because it can lead to compression or wedge fractures in your spine. You'll want to be cautious with excessive rounding of your spine, rounding of your back with any movement. So other yoga poses like plow pose, any pose where we're rolling up the spine, rolling up to stand from a forward fold, ragdoll, even cat-cow. There are ways to modify all of these yoga postures to make them more beneficial for your bones and your body. You do not have to give up these yoga poses altogether. So for example, this seated forward fold here from staff pose, instead of folding like this is called a loaded position where your pelvis doesn't have a lot of freedom to move, right? Instead of folding like this from your back, if we can hip hinge, and if you want more information about how to hip hinge, I have a video on it. I will link it up there. I think it's that side. So click on that if you're interested in learning more about the importance of the hip hinge to protect your spine. But this is one example of how it comes into play. You can bend your knees generously here. So we're hinging from the hips to bend over instead of pulling from the back, right? Now, I know you may want to stretch the hamstrings, and bending your knees takes that stretch out completely or almost completely, depending on how tight you are. Another way to get that hamstring stretch without doing a seated forward fold is lying down on your back, taking a strap. I have one right here, wrapping the strap around the ball of one of your feet, and then sliding your hands down the strap so your shoulders are grounded, the whole back is supported, your spine is supported on the mat, and then you can stretch your hamstrings, the back of your legs, this way. Okay, this is a very safe position for your spine. Your back is fully supported, and then you can just practice drawing the leg in towards your body rather than folding from that loaded, seated position. Okay, number 2, if we have osteoporosis, we want to avoid sun salutations or any fast-moving vinyasa flows where you're jumping or stepping through. There's a lot of flexion in the spine, that rounding in the back that we talked about, a lot of that involved in these movements. And also your stability can be compromised, and stability is so important for those with osteoporosis. There are, of course, ways to modify, but that can be challenging when you're moving so quickly. In general, you might want to avoid the more fast-moving styles of yoga altogether, and instead choose a class where you're holding the poses longer, like a hatha yoga class. This will really allow you to focus on your posture and your alignment, and also the longer holds are better for bone building. Moving on to number 3, our final yoga pose to avoid if you have osteoporosis, and it is the twist. Now, this comes with a caveat because twists can actually be very beneficial for the spine. It's a movement we actually need to help build bone. However, we never want to twist on a rounded spine, and we don't want to force a deep twist. Now, what I see a lot in my yoga classes, especially with seated twists, which again is in that loaded position that makes it hard to have optimal alignment, is the pelvis kind of tucked under. So we're like this and we can't, because we're so tight, right? We can't sit up tall and get that long spine. So we're like this, and then we're trying to twist, and it looks like this. And that's what you really want to avoid if you have osteoporosis, okay? And what I see a lot also beyond the rounding is that we're taking our elbow on the side of the knee, and we are hooking it and yanking and forcing this depth, right? So that's everything you don't want to do if you have osteoporosis. Instead, we find a way to get that long spine. And if you are tight in your lower body, or upper body really, if you're tight, that can be a challenge. There are ways to find that long spine though. You can try a few different things seated. You can prop your hips up on something like a blanket or a block, and that can help get your pelvis in a more tilted forward position rather than tucked under, so you can find that long spine. Some of us might be too tight for even that. If that's you, if you're really tight and you can't get that long spine, I do suggest avoiding seated twists altogether. And there are lots of other ways we can twist our spine. A couple of my favorites are lying on my side and doing this open the book movement. That's a very safe way to rotate your spine. I also love this standing variation of a twist with one leg up on the low part of the chair. There are lots of options to explore in your practice. I know this might feel like a lot of don'ts, but trust me, yoga is a highly beneficial practice for those with osteopenia and osteoporosis. In fact, there was a study done by Dr. Lauren Fishman with 12 specific yoga poses that showed a reduction in bone loss and even a reversal of osteoporosis over a period of time. If you want to learn these 12 poses and more about how to best practice yoga when you have bone loss or osteoporosis, then come try my Yoga for Strong Bones bundle. It's $29 and it includes a guided practice of the 12 yoga poses, a printout, a printable of the 12 poses so you can just put it right by your mat, a lesson about your spine and the importance of posture, including a postural assessment so you can see where you're at, and more. Head on over to strongbonesbundle.com or click the link down in the description. And thank you so much for joining me today. If you did enjoy this video, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a beautiful day.